TNKR Media. Welcome to Inspiring Entrepreneurs Montreal, our 15th season showcasing stories from outstanding business people presented by BDO Canada. My name is Sandrine Rastello, standing in for Dan Delmar, along with Mike Newton of BDO Canada. Hello, Mike.
Hey, Sandrine, how are you?
Good, thank you. Happy to join you again today.
It's a pleasure to have you with us. And, a couple more episodes, Dan's going to be looking for a new job.
So this week on the show, we welcome Adelle Tarzibachi, co-founder of food company Les Filles Fattoush. She started with an import business and now sells ready-to-eat specialties and ingredients from Syria. She gives women refugees a job and a chance to start a new life. And now her expansion plans have won her an offer from a dragon. What a great story.
It really is fascinating, and it's the human and the social aspect, all of this, which really grabs me. There's a lot of entrepreneurs out there who started out on either a pure profit motive, and we'll hear it later from Adelle. But you certainly see there's a lot more to her story than just looking to line pockets.
Exactly. And plus later on the show, we'll have Anne-Marie Henson, partner and leader Eastern Canada at BDO, who will take us through entrepreneurial growing pains and share some advice. But first, let's take a look at some current events. Food, since it's going to be a theme for our show, food and grocers. I mean, a top preoccupation for many Canadians and really around the world, and a concern too for governments. And we've seen the government asking grocers to come up with a plan to stabilize food prices. You've been looking at, there was a recent RBC survey that talked about how inflation is a top preoccupation for Canadians. We've seen an IPO of Instacart also. I mean, lots of things going on in the field of food, right?
Yeah, there's three things I think we can talk about this morning. One is the discussion of Instacart going public. It debuted at $30, took off, jumped as high as $42 on the first day of trading, and then, as many IPOs do, tanked shortly thereafter and closed back at $30.10 the day later. So it really didn't pick up any ground. But I think the issue here is not the fact that the IPO went up and down. I think that's it's a much stronger underlying concern in the economy right now, and I think part of the reason for the IPO price of Instacart taking a tumble is there's a lot of question right now in terms of growth prospects for a company like that in a market where inflation is through the roof. You made reference to the RBC survey. 77% of Canadians are right now overly concerned, and the preoccupation is inflation. And obviously, when you get into that, you're talking about housing costs, food costs, and transportation. Price of oil may see $100 not so far in the future. Gas prices obviously are affected accordingly and are ridiculously expensive right now. And when it comes to food, I mean, the choices, and this is part of the problem, and this is a societal discussion at the end of the day, I guess. But, if you have a choice between product A and product B, and you're only on a limited budget, well, you're going to go with the product that's cheaper, which may not necessarily be the healthier product. So, you're creating longer term health issues by some of these things. So when a country like Canada or the U.S., where we like to call ourselves first world, in today's society, has to worry that much about their people and the food issues, it's a very scary prospect going forward. And I think we're seeing that as it precipitates most thought processes in the marketplace today. And everybody you talk to is complaining about the prices. And that led to Prime Minister Trudeau calling the major food retailers to the table, Loblaw, Sobeys, Walmart, and Target, in order to bring them to the table to discuss, hey, you guys are making record profits, record margins. How does this now translate back to trying to bring food prices down?
I found that interesting because being from France, this happens all the time. The president calls in, the companies try to do something about it, but it was very interesting to see that happening and becoming more of a habit in Canada as well.
Yeah, I think the socioeconomic component to all of this is interesting. I know the conservatives have been all summer beating up on Trudeau's government for inflation and the cost of food and everything else. So I'm not sure what brings everybody to the table, but clearly, when you've only got a few major retailers, there's concern that what does that look like when you're making significant profit and people are literally scrapping to get food.
Yeah, and I'm curious to see what sort of plan they may come up with. The second story and theme you selected is very interesting. It's via the New York Times. It's about this new online safety law in Britain. So the New York Times calls it one of the most far-reaching attempts by a Western democracy to regulate online speech. Can you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, I mean, the online safety bill, basically trying to apply it to terrorist propaganda, online fraud, child safety. I mean, it's just taking this further than it has. And, inevitably, once you move into that space, you're going to have the far right and the far left battling over the discussion of safety versus freedom of speech. And I think that this has been part of the problem. And I know the article discusses messaging service like WhatsApp and Signal, who have been threatening to leave the British market altogether because they're seeing this, in the bill that we're seeing as weakening encryption standards were being changed. Well, what does that mean? And what does that provide in terms of safety and how, where does this go? And I know Dan and I have had this conversation for years in terms of looking at technology. When you get to AI, when you get to a lot of these things, is what does this look like from a safety, and how do you marry safety to ensure that ultimately at the end of the day we still get our freedom of speech, which is kind of one of our basic rights.
That's quite interesting because Britain just did that. The EU as well has its Digital Services Act. And, they've been also taking all sorts of measures, most recently with Apple and the chargers. It feels like a lot of the action and the thought leadership on this is coming from Europe. Is Europe showing the way, you think, or is it showing the pitfalls?
Well, it's interesting because in North America, we like to think that we are at the forefront of technology. We're at the forefront of lawmaking, when in fact, some days we're a distant third. In Europe is certainly, when it comes to addressing rights and safety, has certainly led the way on a lot of this. And part of the battle, I guess, goes to kind of the social side or socialist side of the European mentality vis-a-vis the free market space that we deal with in North America, more so in the US, obviously, in terms of I can say what I want when I want. I mean, we've had, all kinds of information and stories and in the last, even in the last few weeks in terms of Elon Musk and some of his commentary and anti-Semitism. And, there will always be, I think, that battle. And once you have that battle going on, I think you have a very difficult time trying to regulate some of that. So yes, do I think Europe is ahead in this area? Most definitely. I think that we're going to see more to come. And I think we will start to see some of that sprinkle more into Canada probably than in the US. But it certainly will have an implication here going forward.
I'm, by the way, reading the new biography of Elon Musk. I don't know if you had a chance yet. I recommend it.
I have not yet. So, part of it is finding time and part of it is, the man is brilliant. He is foresight. Well, let's just say sometimes it's gone to his head. So,
and you can see that in the book for sure.
That's a whole show in and of itself, which will probably get me kicked off the radio at some point.
So I wanted to keep time for the last topic you chose on ink because you won't think about retreats the same way after this third story. Interesting goodies at this gathering in Aspen. We're speaking here, of course, a gathering on the business of psychedelics. So, but they were coaches, lawyers, doctors. And what were the goodies that the participants received? CBD gummies, a Magic Mind matcha shots, but also psilocybin-infused chocolate bars offered during meditation. So I was wondering, are you just throwing ideas of corporate retreats out there, or is it just a reminder to keep an eye on the market of psychedelics?
Well, BDO, we just had ours last week, and I did not get any of that in my goodie bag. So I guess none of that is coming here so soon. Colorado being at the forefront of drug legislation in the U.S. Has psilocybin as legal at this point. It started with marijuana. There's a lot of others. I mean, it's a basically Sched 1 drug on the federal level, but Colorado. And it's interesting because this, I mean, I don't know if people find of our listeners have followed this, but psilocybin and this whole discussion of how to deal with depression, right? And how do some of these things, affect the mind? And I know if you go back and you've seen stories in the jungles of Costa Rica and Peru where, people go through these exercises and come out with this new awareness that are helping them deal with anxiety, helping them deal with depression. And I'm hoping that our attempt in the corporate retreat world is a genuine one to try and help people and not take advantage of the mental health issues that people certainly in the South American and the Aboriginals have traditionally found that a lot of natural products have come a long way. If you listen to this, read this story, I mean, the gathering took place in mid-September, just a few days ago. It drew founders, investors, coaches, doctors, as you mentioned. And, it was at the intersection of psychedelics, wellness, and business leadership. There's got to be a trillion-dollar industry when you put those three things together at this point. And I'm not too sure where this is going to take us, but I find it's interesting in, the concept of building community, the concept of unlocking creativity, and possibly just what do we do next at our corporate retreat? So maybe trying to get rid of some boredom and create a little bit of fun. But I have to tell you that one of the individuals that was interviewed, said they had just come from Burning Man and now was on their way to their psychedelic show in Aspen. And I got to wonder, I'm not sure that's the greatest selling point for the corporate retreats.
Exactly. I'm so done with Burning Man. I think he mentioned he likes the smaller feel of this.
Yeah.
I mean, what's not to like?
Well, they almost all floated away this year at Burning Man, so that's a whole different conversation.
Exactly. Thank you, Mike, for the diversity of stories this week. Coming up, we'll introduce you to our entrepreneur, Adelle Tarzibachi, co-founder of food company Les Filles Fattoush. She sells ready-to-eat specialties and ingredients. She gives Syrian women refugees a job and a chance to start a new life. And now her expansion plans have won her an offer from a dragon. Adelle, welcome to the show.
Thanks.
We really want to hear about your entrepreneurial journey, but I have to say, there are lots of Les Filles Fattoush products in my kitchen, including your cookbook.
Wow.
But for our listeners who haven't gone to your booth at Marché Jean Talon or who haven't seen you on Dragon's Den, tell us about Les Filles Fattoush and how it came to be.
Les Filles Fattoush, it's a story of humanity. We start our company 6 years ago while there was a lot of refugees coming to Montreal. Me as a Syrian immigrant, I thought, what can I do? How can I help these ladies and these families to integrate in the society? So I met Josette Gauthier and Geneviève Comon, and we have the idea of creating catering service. So by creating this service, we can help the ladies find job and integrate the society and be independent financially. So we start, and also let's discover the Quebecer, the real Syrian perfume, food, and authenticity recipe of our cuisine culture. So we start our catering service, and a few years after, we decide also, in order to give job to those ladies, so we start to import spices from Syria, and we pack them in our kitchen in Montreal. Everything it's handmade, hand-packed. So we want the people try our food once, twice, times a week by asking our service for catering service, but they also can cook some recipe in their own kitchen by using the authentic perfume of our kitchen. So we have started with 4 ingredients, 4 spices. Then we add more spices, pomegranate molasses, dressing for fattoush salad. So now when people click on Les Filles Fattoush, they start to see like a vitrine, a showcase for Syrian food.
So you started out as a pure import. and then you moved to ready-to-eat food. So when you were importing, were you importing purely spices, or were you importing food as well, and then moving forward? Because you're now, I think you've gone from, being, like you said, in your kitchen to over 100 points of sale throughout the province.
We start just importing the spices. We import and pack them in our kitchen in Montreal, not the food. The food we do every plate here. Some product we bought them like pâte de tomate, pâte de piment. Those products we need to buy them locally from here. They are imported product, but we do work also with some distributor. We do also work with some supplier in order to cook our plate.
So you can't give away all your secrets, but your recipe book obviously comes from generations of recipes. Can you maybe give us a little bit of an insight into, kind of the creativity that comes behind the cookbook and maybe the inspiration?
Yeah, the idea of creating a cookbook, it's like putting a light on the Syrian cuisine. So we want people discover the Syrian cuisine. How do they cook? What do they cook? What kind of spices do they need? So when we choose the recipe on the cookbook, it wasn't that difficult because it's what we eat daily in our kitchen, what my mother taught me to cook and what my grandmother taught my mother what to cook. So it was like a recipe from generation to another. And we make it like a simply cookbook so people can find vegetarian meat, people can find the meze, cold meze, hot meze. It's like starters in Syrian food, and some kind of soup, some kind of main dishes, even breakfast, so people can have a Syrian style breakfast cuisine on Sunday or Saturday. And what is excellent about cookbook, it's much more than cookbook, because yes, it has the recipe, but it has also the portrait of each ladies working with us.
Excellent. I guess the concept of importing and starting out is one thing, but there's always the reality of where does cash come from? Is this, did you bootstrap this from the beginning? Did you borrow any money? How did you get this off the ground from a financial perspective?
We inject personal money, and when we believe in our project, we go forward till the end. So you just have to believe in what we are doing, and you can give money, give energy, give projects. So you can give everything if you have a faith in the project.
Maybe talk to us a little bit about, obviously there's a social component to all of this, right? It's really, like you said, you're providing jobs for refugee women that have come to Canada. Maybe just give us a little bit of how this works. Obviously I don't think we need to answer the why, but how and where this model came from and where you see it going.
It wasn't difficult to find the ladies who were looking for a job in the society, because when they came from their city, like some of them there has a diploma, some of them they are teacher, engineer, and they are in front of the reality. It's hard to get to the zero and go and start restudy and do the equivalence for their studies. So they wanna find job, and it wasn't easy. It wasn't difficult for us to find those ladies. And once they get in the company, they feel like confidence. They have their independent, their life. We help them to find a new beginning or new lifestyle in their new city. Exactly.
And how many of these women have come through the kitchen, and what have they gone on to do after that?
When we started it till now, we have engaged 30 people. Right now, we have 10 ladies working in the kitchen. In the summertime, we engage much more person, but immigrant or Canadian or Quebecer, because in Marché Jean Talon, it doesn't need to be refugees. It has to be like, it can be any person who want to work with the Filles Fattoush.
And you've had great success story. I remember hearing on the Dragons that some have gone on and bought their own house, right? Feeling really Canadian.
Yeah. It was very, very, very shocked moment when one of the lady tells us, "Can you give me a paper to prove that I am working 40 hours with you? Because with this paper and with this salary, I can go and prove to the bank so I can buy my house." And for the Syrian buying a house, it's like, okay, I'm a very good citoyen. I am a real citizen, because moving from apartment to apartment, it's a feeling of, okay, I don't have my own home. But for Syrian who left their home, when they buy a house here, so I have my second home here. It's mean a lot for them.
When did you come to Canada, and what was a little bit of the history maybe that brought you to Canada, and what were you doing before, and what led you to start an organization like this?
Actually, I came to Canada 20 years ago. I'm immigrant, and I had the chance to visit Canada twice before coming to Canada as an immigrant. I came to Canada because my family, my grandparents, my uncle, my aunt, they came to Canada 20 years ago. I was married also with a Syrian guy. So I moved to Canada in 2003. And when I moved to Canada, I start a few years after I start to import Aleppo soap from Syria. So it was a way to me to get back to my country, contact the people there, and because I left my country, but I'm attached to it. So I start importing Aleppo soap, and I start selling them in the market also.
Now, Adelle, we'd like to talk a bit more about what's coming up for Les Filles Fattoush. And I can't help but ask, how was your experience with the Dragons? And, what brought you to go there looking for funding?
Actually, I am a very fan of this émission TV show. So I love the Quebecer version, Dans l'œil du dragon, and I also see the Dragons Den. So I love this show, and I love to discover entrepreneur and how it works, and what a bright idea they brought to this city. So from a long time ago, I loved this show, and I was thinking all the time, one day I will be there. And when I have my entreprise, when I found my entreprise with Geneviève, it was no question after several years, because we have to be ready. We have to show our plan. We have to have a vision. We have to be ready to get in front of the Dragons. So it was very nice experience for me and also for the ladies. So going to Radio Canada, show their product, and talk about themselves, it was a very nice experience for them.
Can you share a little bit with us what that plan looked like that you took with you, and kind of what you sold to Dragon?
Actually, when we went to Dragon Den, we want to show our spices. We want to show also that we have a catering service. We do pret-à-manger, and we sell them via La Ferme Lufa. We also have an idea about talking about our chips, pita chips, because it was a project that will show up in the market in the few months. And actually, it has been just 1 month. We start selling pita chips in all the IGA. On the Dragon Den, we mentioned that our pita chips will be in the supermarket, and we have more and more product in the future to develop, to get more and more product on the supermarket.
One of the things with Dragon's Den is the same as is with the Shark Tank. The models is they don't want to take money to give you for anything you've done in the past. They want to use this for distribution. They want to use this for kind of blowing out what you have in place. What was the big thing you think that got them interested in what you were doing, other than the fact that the products are wonderful? What do you think sold them in terms of that expansion plan?
The story about the company, what at the beginning, the company, the creation of the company, why Les Filles Fattoush, why when I buy spice packed by Les Filles Fattoush in comparing with the spice packed by another company, what is the difference? So when the people understand the meaning of the company, the mission of the company, they value the company and they value the products. So the story about the ladies and the story about the refugees and the success story about refugees. Usually when we say refugees, is every time it's a sad story, sad sentences, sad everything. It's sad when we talk about status of refugees. When we talk about refugees, what they can do in their new home, so the sadness became a happiness for them.
Selling of hope, which
Exactly.
I think in the world we're living in lately, we could use a lot more stories like that. Let's move a little bit into, I guess, the food and the grocery market right now. I mean, there's a lot of people, and we've touched on this earlier, about how prices are going through the roof. People are very concerned about inflation. Where do you see two things, I guess? Where do you see the food service that you have fitting into that as part of somebody's weekly grocery? And having dealt with, I guess, a lot of the refugees coming in, this has got to be a significant concern within the marketplace.
It's hard in nowadays to fix a price. It's hard because the inflation there. Actually, we are not advised in advance for the high increase of the product. So it's very hard, and we have to be very attentive when we are calculating our cost, because the price going up without any
You're talking, Adelle, about the prices. So when you're importing the goods, when you're importing spices, you really only find out as you're importing the goods. There's no indication.
And even not just also for the importing product, the pita bread, we sell it from here. The olive oil, we buy it from here. There's a lot of ingredient, they are coming. It's locally product. The spices are imported, but every other spices, everything is made in Canada. So the prices is getting higher much more often than we expected. So when we calculate our price and our margin and everything, we have to be very careful, and we have to check out this price like every 2 months.
One of the things you mentioned you wanted to do with the new funding you got is automation. Is that something that's in the cards? Is that a way to deal with that inflation, to keep your margin and saving in other places?
Actually, yeah, we want everything. It's made by hand right now, and we are planning to buy more equipment to grow our business. But this doesn't mean that we are cutting the job for the ladies, because we are in the same time we are planning to buy machine like equipment. We will integrate more and more products. So we have to show it in another way. We will still, our mission, it will be always in front of everything we are doing.
You talk about a variety of products, and everybody who's familiar knows that there's so many. Do you have any idea how many products you have? I mean, this is just quite a fascinating story. So, how many different products do you have on the shelf and in stores?
We have 8 spices. We have mélasse de grenade, pomegranate molasses. We have a dressing for fattoush salad. We have 4 chips, 4 flavors of chips of pita. And we are working to create more spices by the end of October. And it will be a mix of spices, because in our variety of spices, we have the spices that we import and we pack in our kitchen. And we have the mixed spices, which it's made by Les Filles Fattoush. It's our own mix. Like za'atar, shish taouk, shawarma. We have 3 kind of signature aliments Quebec. It's made by Les Filles Fattoush. You can't find the same spices anywhere else.
How did you get into the stores? Tell us a little bit about how you went from, Jean Talon Market kiosk to selling to over 100 points of sale. What was the thought process? How did you break into that? Was there a marketing plan? Was this they come to you? How did you manage this?
It was a mix of both. Some point of sale, they saw us on television or radio and heard about our story, and they contact us to in order to have our product in their store. And people, we just knock the door, meet the owner or the manager of the shop, show our spices, and start to have a new point of sales. And we send emails like there's no one plan. There's one plan, but there's like a variety of way, and by distributing and having new point of sales.
That was Adelle Tarzibachi, co-founder of Les Filles Fattoush. Thank you, Adelle. We'll have your one piece of advice for aspiring entrepreneurs in just a moment. But first, let's check in with our video subject matter expert guest, Anne-Marie Henson, partner and leader, Eastern Canada at BDO. Anne-Marie, thank you for joining the show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here, and it's been wonderful listening to Adelle. She's made me hungry.
All of us. So we'll talk today about entrepreneurial growing pains, from finding capital to meeting compliance requirements. So we just heard about a great success story today from a local entrepreneur and how they grew the company. Could you take us through some of the biggest pain points that you see companies go through during that stage?
Yeah, thanks. And Adelle's story is a wonderful one, and it's so great to see when people put in such effort into growing their company. And some of the things that I've seen, on my side of that chapter, is, from an accounting and a finance perspective, is when you start off, you're raising money through maybe friends and family. You're investing your own time and your own money into growing your company. And when you grow to the point that you're looking for outside capital, whether it be from venture capital or from a bank, all of a sudden you're bringing outside parties into your company, and you're bringing in parties that now have a stake in your company. You're not just answering to yourself anymore. And that causes the need for more compliance, more formal procedures. Maybe you need to prepare financial statements and circulate them to those lenders. So it does create a need to put in some more formal structure that entrepreneurs at the beginning stages aren't necessarily used to. And that can be a big change from, working in your garage or in your kitchen and working on your company every day to having to answer to these outside stakeholders.
So I can hear a lot of our guests, and I can feel them cringing as you talk about the accounting side of what happens to an entrepreneur. And we all know at the end of the day that accounting should not drive a business decision. However, I guess to get to that point, you need to be aware of options before you make certain decisions. What are we talking about here? What are some of the options the entrepreneur needs to take into consideration?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And it's funny you say that. I find the accounting side of things really exciting, and maybe that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And entrepreneurs should maybe recognize that as a starting point, right? It's normal at the beginning stages that a business owner takes care of multiple facets of the company, but when you grow to the point that you realize that there just aren't enough hours in the day, getting people on board, working with partners, advisors, accountants, consultants to help you with those aspects of the business that are maybe not what you do best and are not as exciting, becomes a really important consideration for you to be able to move forward and really grow the company to where you want it to be. And like you said, it's one of the biggest things that entrepreneurs need to remember is it's important to be informed about, say, how a specific transaction or how something should be accounted for and what the options are available. But it's also really critical to remember that accounting shouldn't drive how you make your business decisions, right? That should be driven by your strategy and where you want to end up in the next few years. But being able to have those informed discussions, to know what those options are, and then being able to have the right conversations about that is really optimally where you want to end up.
The good news about this show is I always learn something new. And I've just learned from you that I can use the term like accounting and entrepreneur in the same sentence. So I guess the last point to discuss all of this is as you start moving towards needing financing or eventually going to a capital market or moving in those directions, there are certain things that from a governance and a structural standpoint that entrepreneurs need to recognize they're not always going to be the smartest person in the room when it comes to. So what are some of these things and how do you address some of them?
Yeah, thanks, Mike. And I think ultimately you really want to just make sure you prepare in advance, right? You don't ever want to end up in a situation where you're talking to potential lenders and you realize that they're asking you for financial information that you don't have readily available. So knowing where you want to end up in the next few years and preparing in advance for that, I think is the key to success for any entrepreneur.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think it's surrounding yourself with the right people, right? Whether that's internally, CFO, the organizational structure, or whether that's externally between accountant, lawyer, banker, whatever it is. You need a team. And, most of the time, the entrepreneur's expertise and drive will fall outside of that circle. And that's where you really need to have the rest of the group together.
Exactly.
Thank you, Anne-Marie. And thank you for bringing the excitement about accounting. Don't forget, you can read more about thought leadership and expert advice from the BDO team at bdo.ca. And as we come to the end of the show, let's ask our entrepreneur, Adelle Tarzibachi, co-founder of Les Filles Fattoush, for her one piece of advice for inspiring entrepreneurs.
It's not easy, a life of entrepreneur. It's very hard. And it's a kind of life that you have to love it. You have to wake up in the morning and go to the work with the face and love what you are working. So for me, it's like have a face in the project and like foncer, go forward. Like if a door closes, another door will open. Like there's always up and down in our life, in personal life and a business life. And the business life, it's a lot more scary up and down, and we have to be optimist about how to see and how to react with the reality of entrepreneur.
Love, faith, energy, optimism. Thank you very much, Adelle Tarzibachi, co-founder Les Filles Fattoush, for joining us this week on Inspiring Entrepreneurs.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Mike, any final thought?
It always amazes me that the guests we get. So thank you, Marjorie. I mean, obviously you do a great job of finding very, very unique niches within our market. And, Montreal known for its tech industry, known for that kind of startup. And, this is really an old school show today. And it's great to see. It's nice to see the success. It's nice to see the social. It's nice to see the human aspect to all of this. So, power to Adelle and the group that she's got together, Sandrine, and I think that once again, very happy with how everything is moving forward.
Great, and I know I can go and have a snack of the each in my fridge.
Thank you. Yeah.
Next week on Inspiring Entrepreneurs by BDO Canada, our guest is Patrice Demers. He will talk to us about his crazy journey as Montreal's guru pâtissier, his pop-up restaurant in New York City, and how he's now reinventing himself with a 14-seat restaurant in Pointe-Saint-Charles. A reminder that you can subscribe to Inspiring Entrepreneur Montreal as a podcast on iHeartRadio, Spotify, or your favorite platform. And you can also log on to the website inspiringentrepreneursmtl.com for hundreds of local entrepreneur profiles. Thanks, Mike. See you next week.
This has been a production of TNKR Media. Good talk.